Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. It's the football review show. We're going to be looking at the weekend's hurling action as well on this show. But obviously, we'll be starting off by looking at the weekend's football action. And I'm joined here, as always, by Matthew Hurley from the GAA Statsman podcast. I suppose an eventful enough week when you look at the weekend's results and talking points. Obviously, my own county, Dublin, certainly getting a massive scare against Kildare, and obviously had a lot to say about that last night, and certainly a lot of fans and the general GAA community certainly had a lot to say about that game between Dublin and Kildare. You'd obviously have big wins for Louth as well, into their first Leinster final since 2010. And then up north, we had Armagh secure themselves into an Ulster final, their first Ulster final since 2008. And of course, a big result for Derry as well, back in the Ulster final once again. I suppose, first of all, Matthew, how's things? And I suppose, like, another crazy weekend of GAA action. And once again, like, I think the game we all expected to be the most conclusive in Dublin Kildare turned out to actually be the closest, which in more ways than one probably sums up this championship, to be honest with you.
It does, yeah, and thanks for having me on again, Aaron, and glad to be back home as well, back in Irish soil from my ex-mate in Scotland. So yeah, great to be back home just in time for the gritty stage of the championship. But yeah, like I wouldn't have thought before this weekend that Leinster would be more competitive than Ulster in general. Like, you look at the Ulster games, down we're way off against Armagh, and you look at Monaghan and Derry. That was the only game I watched in full over the week. I watched Louth and Offaly as well, but it was kind of hard with the Wi-Fi and stuff travelling down back to Cork. But I watched the Derry and Monaghan game, and that game was over, I don't know, with 20 minutes to go, even when Gallagher got that goal. And I thought Derry were very, very comfortable. And you look at the Offaly Louth game yesterday, the fight Offaly showed was incredible. But Louth getting to that Leinster final with two starters up front, Downey and Mulroy, brilliant performance by them. And much to your displeasure, Aaron, what a poor performance from Dublin yesterday. And I'm sure you all got heart attacks on the hill watching it, because, I don't think Dublin would have had a tougher game in Leinster since, ironically enough, Kildare in 2011 with Andrew McLaughlin pulling backboard Brogan and winning a controversial free. I don't think Dublin have had a competitive game since then. So, yeah, it's strange times, really strange times, and looking forward to getting into the discussion.
Yeah, definitely what has been the closest game since that, obviously. And we've had a few, I suppose, well, we haven't really had a few. I mean, the Dublin Meath one from a couple of years ago is probably the only other one that stands out. But I think we won that in the end by 5 or 6 points. But I remember it was 3 points gone down the home stretch, in fairness. But yeah, it was a mental weekend of action. But I suppose the first thing I actually wanted to start with was just a bit of a discussion, obviously, around social media, with the fact that, like, we had almost every game this weekend was streamed through GAA Go. Like, I think Cork Waterford might have been the only game that was on TV, from the looks of things. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but obviously you had Armagh Down, which was on BBC Northern Ireland, but that's not accessible for people who are in the Republic or, on this side of the border or whatever. So, like, when you look at it, like, a lot of games obviously streamed through GAA Go, and I've seen a lot of people, I suppose, angry with that on Twitter, angry on social media. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Like, do you think, like, it's fair for almost every game during a weekend to be on GAA Go? Like usually we'd get a game on Saturday night on RTE. Usually you'd get a couple of games on the Sunday on RTE. But I suppose everything was on GAA Go at the weekend, which was a little bit different anyway to what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, it was a difficult one. I think Galway Kilkenny was the other game shown on RT, but that's still 2 games this weekend. That really, it isn't good enough when you look at it from that side of a point of view. And probably myself, and I would imagine yourself, bought the GAA Go early pass in December, and we don't have those issues and stuff like that. But like, it is bad for elderly and things like that. That's probably the big thing in general. But it is a really, really tough one, because last year those games would have been shown on Sky. That's the main thing out of this. And the main thing out of GAA Go was to get Sky's influence gone, because the GAA wasn't developing as they hoped in the UK and stuff like that. But GAA hasn't been free to air other than RT since 2013 now. Correct me if I'm wrong now, I think it was TV3 the last time GAA was free to air then. But it hasn't been free to air since. And Look, I'd ask anybody in the comments or anybody in social media or anybody watching this, which would you actually rather, Sky Sports or GAA Go? Because that's an honest question. Like it is a difficult one at the same time. Like Sky, you would have bought the whole package and stuff like that. Whereas GAA Go, I thought anyway. It's just me, maybe Aaron, but I thought €59 in December for the whole pass for the whole season. I thought that was a good price. I thought it was decent enough. I bought it anyway. I've enjoyed it ever since. I enjoy games like New York and Leitrim and things like that. And the great thing about GAA Go, you don't just get the games, in my opinion. You for €59 December, for example, if you pay that amount like I did, you get games on demand. You can watch them back, which is very handy for podcasts and stuff like that. You could just watch the full game back and go to whatever point in the game you want. And that's a brilliant thing for me. But I do get the cons with it, with the elderly. And I know it from my grandparents and things like that. It's very, very hard to watch GAA games now since the GAA left TV3. It's only on RT. And I'd imagine for fans that are into football to see all the games being on GAA Go or BBC Northern Ireland, I think it was wrong enough. And when you look at the hurling games on TV, like Kilkenny Galway lacked a bit of spark, to be honest with you. Cork and Waterford was over after half time, and it wasn't really a good omen. But another thing, which is as much of a disgrace as anything, in my opinion, there was no Saturday game last night. Or sorry, should I say Saturday night? And they've crammed all the highlights into the Sunday game. Like in the Sunday game last night, they could have talked about the Tailteann Cup seedings, the Sam Maguire seedings, the GAA News of the Week, like they do in the Sunday game nowadays. Rather than speeding through so many games, they could have easily put Clare and Limerick game highlights as the Saturday game, as well as Tyrone and Derry, and as well as the other Leinster games with Wexford and Dublin were involved in those. So I think they should have done that. That's as big of a disgrace as again as the GAA Go stuff. But in general, I don't know. It just might be an unpopular opinion, Aaron, but I think GAA Go, I think it's an excellent service so far. It's looking good so far. I think the analysts, the presenters there, one of the presenters was actually on my podcast, and Ashton O'Reilly, doing an excellent job on GAA Go at the moment. And the main thing with GAA Go, you can watch games on demand. And I think that's a brilliant service to have for €59 for a year. Honestly, Aaron, I think that's a good price. When you look at GAA prices down through the years, when you look at what you have to pay for Sky Sports down through the years, I think it's a good price. I don't know what you think of that yourself.
Yeah, like I think it's interesting, all right. Like I think obviously I think all of us would clearly prefer, obviously, if it was on Virgin Media or something of that nature. Maybe if TG Cahir were to take over that hold and show championship games and everything else. Obviously we would all prefer that because it would be free and we wouldn't have to pay. Like I think that goes without saying. But I suppose like the main thing probably is, in my opinion, from a with GAA Go, is that it's like I don't know if there's enough there at times. Like I don't know if they're showing enough throughout the entire year. Like obviously they've been shown quite a bit in the championship. It'd be very handy if they could show more games in the league. Be great to maybe have a highlight show on that as well. Different things. I know you can watch the Sunday game through GAA Go, in fairness. But yeah, like I think that's the thing. Like it'd be nice to have more options, more games. But as you said, like in terms of the price, obviously before Christmas, like I actually got the one I only paid for it a couple of weeks ago, so I think I ended up paying like €70 or €75 in the end, which was a little bit annoying. But as you said, before December, €59 was a lot better than what it was previously. And like it's like it is a good service. It runs fairly well, but at the same time, there has been some streaming issues. There has been some technicalities as well. Like obviously, it's the first time it's come in, but I suppose like if you were to look between GAA Go and Sky, you probably would go for GAA Go, in fairness, because like trying to get Sky packages, obviously you have to. There's a lot of effort involved. Whereas GAA Go, you can just pay for it, and if you're not a huge GAA fan, you could just watch it casually and pay for the odd game here or there, and maybe follow your own county. So I suppose it feels like it's the best of a bad bunch in some ways, but like I think if they keep improving it, keep evolving it, maybe show more games, I think then we could maybe see it's definitely something we could get a lot more used to.
It is, and the thing was like a Seamus Brady for Play on GA, follow his channel if you haven't already. He suggested that GA should have a GA kind of TV thing, not fan TV, just a GA TV where you can see all the games and things like that. And I think honestly, GA Go is the closest thing we have to that. So I honestly think it's a good enough service indeed because of that. But like it is a difficult one at the same time because like you said yourself you'd pay €79 or something like that rather than the €59 early bird pass in December or whatever. But and some people would have followed the same thing, and I suppose that goes down, I suppose, to GA creators and stuff like that on social media to notify the people that there is early bird passes and things like that in December. You could buy this for €59. It'll save you a lot of money rather than pay it late in like March, April, and then it'll be €79 or something like that, and you're ending up costing more money and stuff like that. So look, that's a must too. That people have to do that to notify the people to pay the €59 and things like that. But at the same time, I'd rather, if you were to say GA Go or Sky Sports, because I think the GAs with free to air, I think Conor McKenna mentioned on Twitter, not the Tyrone player, the GA fanatic, he mentioned on Twitter that the free to air days are gone. Simply. Like, I know a lot of people wanted to come back. They want to go back to TV3 the way it was back in 2013. But simply, the GA are an organisation that want money to come in, want sufficient money to come in. Sky wasn't working for them. It simply wasn't, because you look at all the sports on Sky, the Premier League, Formula 1, that got a load of traction. Like Formula 1 got a load of traction in the UK over the years, and the GA didn't. And the GA must have been thinking last year, hey, there must be something wrong here, and we aren't getting the amount of service. And as well as that, Sky, I think Kevin McGorty mentioned on the JMAP podcast as well, with the games specifically last week with Laois in Dublin and Tipperary and Kerry. It's not a very good product when you're showing those type of games on Sky Sports. Okay, Dublin and Laois Dublin and Wexford was showing last year, and it was an absolute joke by half time. And I don't think the Sky customers would have wanted that. Whereas with GA Go, it's everybody's a fan of it. You can watch the games if you want to. Like, for example, Kerry, Tipperary, and Laois and Dublin last week were both on GA Go. I just decided not to watch them because they were over after half time, and I had common sense. I didn't want to watch them. But with Louth and Offaly yesterday, while I was in the car going home, for example, I watched that, and I thought, other than my own Wi-Fi issues, not GA Go and stuff like that, I thought it was a very good service. It showed, minute 1 to minute 70 up to extra time, with no glitches or anything. I thought it was an excellent service. And another thing, I think they're doing something that's extraordinary compared to RT. You look at GA Go's coverage at the moment. They're interviewing referees before the game. They're going amongst the fans to interview them. I think BBC Northern Ireland are doing the same thing. RT aren't doing it, and I suppose that's kind of the difference. Aaron, I know I don't. Like, a lot of people won't like me saying this, but I think that's the difference between free-to-air coverage and paid coverage. You get what you paid for with paid coverage. With free-to-air, you specifically only get the game. And that's just my opinion. I think GA Go, the analysts are good, the presenters are good, the plans are good, the connection's decent enough so far. The price, I think, is reasonable enough if you pay for it early. And I think it is here to stay, and I think it's a good enough service. I think it's better than Sky, in my opinion, and I think GA Go enjoy showing GA coverage, whereas Sky, especially with the nothing games like Dublin Wexford last year, don't. And I just think that's the difference between the two.
Yeah, like I think it's refreshing enough. Obviously, you have a whole host of new pundits as well, like the likes of Michael Murphy, for example. Paddy Andrews has always been a fairly decent listen on off the ball through the years, or through the last couple of years. So it's obviously interesting to hear his sort of take on games as well. So it is a bit more refreshing, and it is nice to have something different to what we're used to. I think we'll all agree that RTE has become very stale and it's become very placid, and even last night as well at times in the Sunday game, like it's a bit too, it's just a bit too predictable. But there are a few comments coming in here. Mikey says that the problem isn't the GAA Go paywall, is that there isn't a fair share of games on TV. There should be minimum 2 semi-finals on TV this weekend. I don't think there should be more games behind a paywall than on TV. that's not keeping with the amateur ethos or ethos or whatever. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think more so what I meant was, for example, when you had Kildare versus Wicklow last weekend and Offaly versus Meath, like, I think it would be great to have those games on GAA Go as well. Like, maybe I'm asking for a bit too much there, but it would be nice to just have a bit more options, and the games that are, that wouldn't be normally broadcasted on TV would be accessible through GAA Go, because we know there are cameras in the grounds, and it was, 2 years ago, I think it was 2021 and 2020, where every game was accessible through GAA Go, and I thought it was a phenomenal service, to be honest with you. It was brilliant to obviously go back and watch games and keep up with games. So, like, if they could go back to something like that, it would be absolutely perfect. Viable Solution says bring back Joe Brolly. Yeah, maybe, but I think Joe Brolly might be blacklisted at this stage. But there we go. But I suppose, look, we'll crack on with the weekend's action anyway, and I suppose we'll start with the Dublin game. Certainly didn't expect to be discussing this game first of all, but as we were saying there at the top of the show, like, it was the closest game out of the four. I know Louth and Offaly went to extra time, but in terms of the game going down the home stretch, like, this was very, very close. And as I said in my reaction yesterday, like, I think Dublin got very, very lucky. And, if you were a Kildare fan waking up this morning, you'd be absolutely devastated, because this was a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, and like the thing was, Glenn Ryan was actually ranting on GAA Go last night, saying that Dublin get everything and things like that. And whereas that may be true, like, I think I definitely agree with you on the Kildare point of view. It was a missed opportunity, and that's the second time in a row that Kildare missed an opportunity like this. Fair play to them; they changed their tactics. They didn't go man on man, which actually served them pretty well in this game. Like, they stayed in the game. Like, Dublin only late in the 64th minute. And that was epitome to what Kildare did in this game. They did so well, like Paddy Woodgate and Neil Flynn scoring that point towards the end. Like, Jack Robinson was doing well at stages, but I suppose, like, it was just the experience maybe of Dublin that pulled them through. It might be a bit embarrassing from a Dublin fan's point of view, really, to say that, but. Look, with Dublin, I looked at the team at the start. You look at Colin Baskell, you look at Sean Bugler, a few others, Darrell Oakham. They're new to the setup. They might do other things in a general sense. They might do it well, but in scoring terms, they're pretty average, I think, in my opinion. Like, you look at the bench they had with Dean Rock, Jack McCaffrey, Cormac Costello, you brought them all on and they changed the game completely. But then again, the worrying thing from a Dublin point of view is, once you still brought them on, you still only won by 2 points against a Kildare team that were struggling against relegation in Division 2. So, that's kind of a worrying trend really for Dublin. I suppose it won't be worrying for Leinster. Hopefully from a Dublin fans point of view, they won't lose to Louth, because that would be just terrible for Dublin GAA in general. But in terms of the All-Irelands in general, you look at the teams in it, especially in Pot 3. If Dublin get a Mayo or Tyrone, make no mistake about it, if that was Mayo or Tyrone on that pitch yesterday, they would have slaughtered Dublin. So that'll be the worry for Dessie Farrell going into the games. But I looked at Dublin's squad even before the Laois game last week, and I'm saying to you off air, there's quality in it. You look at Mannion, you look at McCaffrey, you look at Fenton and McCarthy in midfield. So you'd have to, and Cluxton, of course, coming back into goal. Great to see him back, lively as ever. But I'd be questioning, what's the temperament like? What is wrong? Like, you said it to me off air, and you looked I looked at your match reaction as well, and you were very vocal about Dublin taking the wrong opportunities in the first half. They weren't shooting. And then in the second half, they were hitting wild shots. And I've seen this in the highlights reel in some of the game. Keane Murphy hit a wild shot. By that point, it actually went over the bar. But that was beyond the 45 for a centre-back. And you're thinking, you're losing in the game. You should get in the right positions and shoot then. Why are you shooting from ridiculous angles? And I think this is a Dublin team that are, doing things that won't be synonymous to what Jim Gavin did in the past few years when they were putting teams away at ease. This is my honest view on it, but I thought it was a very, very poor performance for Dublin. For Kildare, good performance. They stuck to their jobs. They changed what they did last year, which worked well for them. But the problem was they didn't close out the game, and it was a huge missed opportunity for Kildare. I don't want to be too hard on them, because I thought it was a brilliant performance from them, defensively particularly. But a huge missed opportunity now against Dublin in Croke Park for the second game in a row, which is kind of annoying for Glenn Ryan, I'd imagine, rather than, the stuff that happens with Dublin on a regular basis.
Yeah, why do you think it is with Dublin though? Because like when you look at it, when you look at their team, you look at the players, as we said, like there's no injuries now in the team. Like there really is no excuses. Like Conor O'Callaghan's there, Paul Mannion's in the side, Brian Fenton, Cormac Costello. Like you're talking about some of the best footballers in the country. You've got Stephen Cluxton back in the side. Jack McCaffrey's playing as well. Like it is from 1 to 15. Like it's not. Maybe the levels, have dropped ever so slightly from the 6 in a row side. But when you look at it player from player, there's been a few retirements here and there. But generally, it's still more or less the same side. And Viable Solutions has a comment here. It's a bit of a mistake bringing back some of the older players from the 6 in a row team. It's telling players in the Dublin team you're not good enough. Time for a total rebuild. But where I disagree with that is that Paul Mannion's still only 29. Jack McCaffrey's still only 29. Stephen Cluxton, fair enough. I'd agree with your point there. I think maybe, it's a little bit unusual considering how well David O'Hanlon's done. That Cluxton just comes back out of nowhere. But to be fair to Cluxton, he actually was probably Dublin's best player yesterday. But like there's so many great players there, and for whatever reason, like we're in the first half just keeping the ball for large parts, not wanting to take the shot on, not wanting to take opportunities on. We're reluctant to shoot. We look like we were lacking confidence, lacking ideas. And when you have those players on the pitch, like it should just be, we should have the freedom of Croke Park. We should be taking chances on, and we should be playing with confidence, because at the end of the day, this is Dublin we're talking about. I know we haven't won an All-Ireland since 2020 now, but the players are very, very good. Like there's some of the best players in the country there. So it's so unusual to see Dublin playing sort of so within themselves.
You'd have to question as well, like it could be the same situation as last year. Like you looked at last year, Dublin were performing terribly in the first part of the year. But then suddenly when the championship comes along, they click into gear. And they take Kerry all the way to the end in that All-Ireland semi-final to Sean O'Shea hitting that miraculous kick. You'd be thinking, does this story have a similar trend this season? That Dublin are just doing very, very poorly at the start of the year and then click into gear once the All-Ireland comes. Like even when Cluxton came in yesterday, legendary goalkeeper, one of the best goalkeepers I've ever seen, granted. But with Cluxton coming in yesterday, with that news story coming out, I think the first to say it on the social media platforms was GAA, that's I think it was. But once I seen that post, I'm thinking, this is sort of a disrespect to Kildare in many ways. Because, yes, he's a great player, but you'd be thinking, start David O'Hanlon, give a bit of respect to Kildare and go from there, But the narrative around the game probably enticed Dublin to bring Cluxton back in, to say that Kildare were just way off it. They only scrape past Wicklow when you look at the general sense of the game. I know they won by 10 points, but Wicklow were in the game for most parts. And you were thinking, okay, Dublin could hammer Kildare here. And Daisy Farm must have thought of a plan. Then I know I'll bring back Cluxton now to make a headline out of this game. Maybe that was it. And it very nearly backfired, in my opinion. Anyway, it'd be interesting actually to know if O'Hanlon actually started that game yesterday. Would Dublin have eased the victory? Would the news stories, would they not have filtered through and, Dublin would have just focused on the win and get it done? Or was it just a player issue yesterday? Were they just all off it? Because I looked at the Scorpio app after a few minutes. Mannion seemed to be your only scorer with 3 points out of 3. Kilkenny then after that. And that brings me back to the points of the forwards. They just aren't good enough. I get your man's comment there. I forget the name of the commenter there. But it is a suggestion that Dublin players aren't good enough and stuff like that. But maybe they're not really. You look at Colin Baskell. Yes, he's had potential for years. But for how long has he had potential now? And Ryan Baskell, the same thing. Sean Bogler, he might do things, extraordinary in other facets of play. But in terms of scoring and in terms of shooting, I think he's very, very poor. And you look at the Dublin team overall of the pitch, I just don't think they're up to that level of the 6 in a row team. It's just honest facts. Simply is. And I think it'll be a long time before Dublin, get back over the horse. And I'll give you an example. The under-20 team that played Cork in 2019, I know they lost the final, but the best player by far away that year was Kieran Archer. Where's he now? You know, he was an excellent player coming through the ranks, and he somehow disappeared off it. I think you might know more about we are, but I'll be questioning where are these players going? The likes of Kieran Archer, the likes of the Kildare was good over the league campaign. Now I don't think he came on yesterday. You're thinking, where are these players? They perform well sometimes, and then they go missing. You know, it's very, very strange in my opinion anyway, but yeah, it might be an indication that Dublin forwards just aren't up to senior level. And that might be the honest truth of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but even from looking at Colin Basquel as well, like he's just fallen into the same trend as all the other forwards as well, where he's not taking chances on or shooting. And then when he is, you know, it's going miles wide. And that was the thing. Like in the first half, we weren't taking chances on. And then in the second half, we decided to start shooting, but it was ridiculous shooting. You know, it was just really, really poor efforts. And yeah, like I think I agree with your point to a certain extent as well. I think there was a lot of complacency from Dublin. I think even the fact that Dessie Farrell took Paul Mannion off with about 15 minutes to go, like he was our best player on the pitch. He was our best forward. And he takes him off with about, 10, 12 minutes to go. And, it's like the game was over. Like it was a little bit unusual, to be honest with you. And you do get the feeling that Dublin are playing for further down the line, for a Kerry or for a Mayo or something like that. But I just don't think the approach is right. I don't think the standards are right as well. And you can't just flip the switch, in my opinion. Like I just don't think you can do that. Hurling 1, 2, 3, 4 says I think playing Cluxton is disrespect to Hanlon. Training since last October and just drop for someone who was just back. Like, yeah, what was your opinion on that? I know you were mentioning it there, like on Stephen Cluxton playing. Like he is 41 years of age, and I obviously did make the point a couple of weeks ago, I think to yourself and maybe Seamus Brady as well. And we were saying that it's weird. It's strange for Cluxton at 41 years of age to come back and be on the bench. It's a little bit unusual, to be perfectly honest. Like the only way I could ever see him come back is if he became the number one again. But you would argue David O'Hanlon's been excellent for Dublin this year. He's made some big saves in big moments. And, Cluxton, it's different for goalkeepers in terms of their age. Like Cluxton could play until he's probably 43, 44. But at the same time, you've got someone there like David O'Hanlon who is more than good enough now to be the number one. And look, I don't know if it was an injury. I don't know if there was something else going on there. But if Cluxton is going to be our number one between now and the end of the season, it probably is quite disrespectful to David O'Hanlon and, the rest of, the likes of Evan Comerford as well.
It is definitely, and you looked at O'Hanlon. I know we go back to that live stream against Cork and stuff like that, but after that save for Brian Hurley, the tip onto the post, you're thinking surely Dublin own one to just stay with the faith, keep with him, and that's just my honest opinion on it. It's kind of like in other sports when you look at it. I'm thinking of a prime example, maybe Irish rugby. I don't know if you know Irish rugby in general, Aaron, but Brian O'Driscoll was a main player for Ireland for years, and he held on. In the end, they held him on for too long. Up until 2014, and Ireland took years to replace him. I think Gary Ringrose was the next replacement after him. Another example, you look at soccer at the moment, you look at, or even at Barcelona, Lionel Messi, unbelievable player. But when he was getting on, Barcelona weren't willing to find a replacement for him. And they weren't giving young lads an opportunity. And eventually Messi goes, and then what now? Look, I fear it could happen with Dublin. If O'Hanlon he sees that Cluxton is going to get game time for the rest of the championship season, he might think, I could go off to America here. I could go to Australia. I could do something with my life here that won't involve Dublin. Because what's the point of staying in Dublin if a 41-year-old is going to get ahead of me? There might be an honest... that might be a hard point to hear for Dublin fans. And it might be a hard point to hear for people that want Dublin to do well. But I think it could happen if they keep playing Cluxton like this. I know Cluxton's an unbelievable player, but let's not forget, he's 41 years of age now. The time for Cluxton is to go back into the backroom team, do a management role or something like that. Yes, he played well enough yesterday, but I think Dublin owe O'Hanlon to start him in nearly every game this year because of the way he's performed. Like, you look at other counties, they've moved on. A prime example, actually, I mentioned Messi and Driscoll and other sports, but Donegal with Michael Murphy, they didn't find a replacement for him. Cork right now with Patrick Horgan, they're not finding a replacement for him. That will have sufficient repercussions down the line for these teams if they hold on to these old players for too long. That's just my honest opinion. And it might be harsh on these players, but age catches up with you. And I think that's just my honest opinion. I just think I agree with many of the comments in this stream in general. It's a disrespect on Hanlon to start Cluxton yesterday out of the blue like that as well. Like, that was pretty. And for Hanlon to train from October, November, whatever it is, and to Cluxton to just come in April and just say, okay, here's the number 1 shirt. It's a disrespect. I just think it's a disrespect. And Dizzy Farrell, I thought after a few years he would have got respect out of the players, but I think this sort of incident, it could go very, very wrong, and it could lose the respect of David O'Hanlon to the point where he's just like, I'm off, and that's a sad sight because he's an absolutely brilliant goalkeeper, smashing young player, but to be treated like this, I think it's just wrong.
Yeah, Viable Solution says as well, it will have a knock-on effect. What happens when there are no players from the 6 in a row team to rely on? Dublin need to accept that a rebuild will have to happen at some stage. Kerry did the same thing back from 86 onwards, and it took us 10 years to win another All-Ireland because we didn't do a rebuild and kept calling players back. And yeah, that is the thing, and that probably is something that you see with all the great teams down the years. Really, when you think back to even when Kerry won the All Ireland in 2009, you think about it, they kept a lot of those players around for a long time. They managed to get one over the line in 2014, but then there was a real sort of period there where a lot of the older players were sticking around, and to be fair, they were still doing quite well and getting to semi-finals and everything else. And then the younger guard came in probably around 2018, 2019 and eventually went on to win it last year. You see it all the time. You see it in other sports as well. I think even, you look at the likes of Liverpool, for example, as well, who are something similar. Now that's a little bit different in the sense that they aren't reinvesting, they aren't putting money into the team. But sometimes coaches and managers are too loyal to players who got them, where it got them, and there probably might come a stage where maybe some of these do need to be moved on. But I still do think that a lot of these players are very good footballers, and I think with the right management structure next year, in my opinion, I think you will see Dublin be thereabouts. I still think some of the younger players are decent, like Lee Gannon, Lorcan O'Dell. If you can get Kieran Archer involved, there are good players in the county, in my opinion, great club players as well, who are playing for Kilmacud Crokes, who can't seem to get a look in. The likes of Darragh Mullen as well, for example, can't seem to get a look into this team, which is very, very frustrating. But there we go. I mean, in terms of Kildare, obviously a massive missed opportunity. You do get the sense that with the underage success of Kildare, they're obviously back in an under-20 All-Ireland semi-final. They were missing some of their great players. You feel like if they can get their act together over the next couple of years, they have what it takes to beat Dublin and win this Leinster Championship. I really do believe it. But the question is, will they get their act together?
That is the big question, and the answer is still to be, resolved in all things. I look at Kildare yesterday. Okay, they performed well enough, in fairness to them, but when you look at actually the spread of scores they had yesterday, and it was a problem throughout the league as well. They'd only, I'd say, only their full forward line, Ben McCormack at centre forward, Neil Flynn coming off the bench. I think that was only 5 different scores yesterday. And to be honest, to beat Dublin in the general sense, that's not good enough. I know that's harsh on Kildare after a brilliant performance and all that, but they need to get more scores into the team. They can't keep relying on the likes of Jimmy Hine, Ben McCormack, Darragh Kieran to get them scores. They need scores all over the field. They need the likes of Alex Byrne from Naas to come in through the ranks. They need Kevin Feely to step up. They need Daniel Flynn to come back into the team. I think Kildare have a smashing squad. And I think they have a smashing management team. And they do have the potential. When you look at the youngsters coming through, I think a few of them under-20s were actually in the Kildare team last year to reach the All-Ireland final. And to come back again and beat Dublin for the second year running in the Leinster Championship, which is an incredible achievement. And then players will do amazing things, I think, in the next few years. You look at Dan Lynham coming through the ranks from last year's under-20s. You have Shane Farrell. You have Cormac Barker. You have Tomas Van Engelbert at full-back. Very good youngster as well. And you look at them players for Kildare, you look at the Naas team, they did well in the Leinster Championship over the last few years. They put it up to Kilmacud Crokes the year before they won the All-Ireland as well, which was a brilliant achievement in itself. So I think the players are there for Kildare. The youngsters are there. The Naas players are there. I think the management team is the right one they have at their disposal. I think Johnny Doyle, Dermot Earley, Anthony Rainbow, Glenn Ryan, they know a lot about Kildare football, and they'll die and live and breathe for Kildare football in general. But I just think to progress even further for them, they need to have more of a spread of scores. You look at, we got to Derry in the minute, the amount of spread of scores they had. Kildare need to have that similar number to compete with the top level teams. It might be a harsh opinion, but I just think Kildare, for progression to be made, they need to improve on those certain aspects.
Yeah, Mikey had a comment here. Aaron, will you be streaming the Sam Maguire and Tailteann Cup draw tomorrow morning? Is that tomorrow morning, is it?
1 o'clock, yeah.
1 o'clock. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Maybe I'll definitely do a reaction to it anyway. Definitely have a look at it and all the rest. Definitely be interesting to see what happens there. But there we go. And yeah, look, Kildare will obviously go into that draw now with a bit of confidence. It's mad what can happen after a couple of games. I think Kildare will definitely be one of the pot 4 sides that I think a lot of teams will probably want to avoid. In my opinion. Given how they performed there, but there we have it. I suppose moving on to the other Leinster semi-final, it was Louth 27 points, Offaly 215. Very, very good result from a Louth perspective, obviously, to get the job done, get the win, and book themselves into a first Leinster final since 2010. Was at the game. Obviously, I would definitely say there was more Offaly fans there than Louth fans, to be honest with you. But I think at the same time, for Louth, for them to get their moment and to score 27 points in Croke Park, I know a lot of them came in extra time, but that's impressive stuff indeed.
It is, yeah, and geez, Louth, they do well to give Cork and Kildare fans absolute heart attacks in this game, because how many times have they wrapped this up? You were thinking, okay, they're 4 points ahead. I was thinking at this stage, surely Louth are going to win this game and we're going to be converted to Sam Maguire despite our performance against Clare. But then Offaly come back into the game. It's fair play to Offaly. But Louth had a goal chance as well towards normal time. You're thinking, how on earth did they miss this? And it was a frantic end for Louth fans and fans to Kildare and Cork indeed. But Offaly, they fought back in fairness to them, like Anton Sullivan scoring that point towards the end, Declan Hogan scoring the goal, Peter Cunningham scored 1-1 from the back line. It's actually an interesting stat for Offaly. They've scored 4 goals in the championship so far, and all 4 of them goals have come from defenders. Rory Egan, Peter Cunningham, and Declan Hogan. All defenders, the full-back, the wing-back, and the centre-back. It's a quite unusual stat there from an Offaly point of view, but no matter how you get the goals, it doesn't matter as long as you put it into the back of the net, as they say. But fair play to Offaly for giving it all the fight they got, and they nearly pulled it out of the bag in the end. And it was a good weekend in general for Offaly. Offaly hurlers in the under 20s beat Galway as well, with Cormac Egan, one of the former footballers, scoring one of the winning goals in that game. So Offaly is definitely on the rise. But for Louth, Leinster final, Louth first since 2010, and we all know what happened that year. So I think everybody, I'd be safe to say, other than yourself and any other club, everybody else will be showing for Louth in this final, because it's what they deserve. It's seriously what they deserve after what they went through in 2010. And best of luck to Louth. And before I switch over to you, Kieran Downey, Sam Mulroy, 13 points combined yesterday. Incredible. And Mulroy himself, 5 points in extra time. Clutch moment for a clutch player. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And even McKeown as well, who played a corner forward. I believe it was his championship debut. Came up from the under 20. So fair play to Mickey Hart. He's given these players a big moment. He's given players big games in big moments, and fair play to him. But and especially when you look at how Kildare set up against Dublin, a lot of men behind the ball obviously weren't probably as clinical on the counter attack, and obviously Kildare are not a team that is used to playing that way, but Louth are used to playing that way. This is how Louth play, and as you said, with Sam Mulroy now back in the side, fit and available, some of the other players like you mentioned in there as well, Darren McConnon, who's looked decent as well. Louth will believe that they have a chance of winning that game. When they played Dublin in the league game a couple of weeks ago, it was a fairly close enough game, all things aside. And Louth will not fear Dublin, and it's mad to say that, because if you had said that a couple of years ago, you would have been laughed at. But Louth will believe that they have a chance. And to be fair, I hope the Dublin do win. But I think this has the makings to be possibly one of the closest Leinster finals in this 12 to 13 year spell that Dublin have had, when they've obviously had a monopoly over Leinster.
And the thing was, actually, two interesting points that came into my head. Samuel Roy was missing in that league game when Louth actually threatened Dublin in some aspects of the game. And another thing, like, a lot of people thought Kildare beat Dublin last year, but Kildare decided we're going to play football and we're going to go man-on-man, which was a stupid tactic looking back on it, and Kildare were absolutely open. Louth won't do that in the Leinster final. They'll sit back, they'll counter-attack Dublin, and they have the players, as you mentioned there, Aaron, Dar McConnon, Kieran Downey, Samuel Roy, Craig Lennon, Conor Grimes, Tommy Dornan and Conor Early in midfield are colossal figures. Louth will definitely put it up to Dublin. I think it won't be easy for Dublin whatsoever in this game. I think it'll be a very, very intriguing game in general, and I think Louth will definitely put it up to Dublin. When you look at the players they had, to look at the fact they finished third in Division 2, they did so well in that league campaign as well. And yeah, I think Louth will definitely give it to Dublin throughout the game, and I think it'll be a very, very difficult game to overcome for Dublin. I think it'll be a very, very difficult game. Louth will not make it easy. Mickey Hart, more than any other manager, wants to beat this Dublin team, and he's an excellent coach at doing so. Remember, he beat Dublin in 2008 out of the blue with Sean Kavanagh and Royce McMenamin and Joe McMahon all coming to the fore. Albeit, okay, that was a different Tyrone team back then and a way different Dublin team back then than it is today. But that will give Louth all sorts of a belief that they have the manager there, they have an assistant manager in Gavin Devlin there that knows what it takes to beat a Dublin team in Croke Park. And that'll be a big achievement for Louth if they manage to do it. If they manage to do it, I think it will be one of the shocks of the decade, to be honest with you, if Louth manage to do it. But I don't think it's among the realms of possibility. I think Louth could actually pull off a shock here, especially with the way they play and the forwards they possess.
I was muted there. Yeah, don't know what happened there. But anyway, apologies about that. Yeah. Well, what was I saying anyway? I was saying that Dublin basically against Kildare, like, the performance couldn't get much worse. So you'd like to think that Dublin will go back to the drawing board and they'll bring their A game against Louth. And I do think with the players that we have, if we bring our A game, we're more than capable of beating Louth quite comfortably. But the problem is that consistency-wise has just not been there. I suppose from an Offaly perspective, going into the Tailteann Cup, a tremendous effort. They were unlucky in the end. They had that chance right at the end in normal time that dropped short. And there was a feeling amongst the crowd as well that Offaly had it at one stage. But a tremendous effort from Offaly, good underage the last couple of years. And look, they'll go into that Tailteann Cup as possibly one of the favourites, if not dark horses.
It'll be difficult enough to win it for them as well, because you look at the Tailteann Cup, the way it's going on. You look at Pot 1, Meath, they beat Meath before, so that'll be an easy enough game. You would think for Offaly. Limerick aren't like they were last year. So I think if they avoid Fermanagh and Cavan in the group, I think that'll be an excellent thing for Offaly, an excellent omen to go on further into the Tailteann Cup. You look at the teams in it this year, we'll get on to Down in the minute. They're a decent side. Sligo aren't in this. I don't think you're Sligo now because they're a Division 3 team, but I just remember they're Sam Maguire. The Wicklow are a decent side. They could cause some trouble, but I think Offaly will have to be up there with one of the favourites. I think only Cavan for Fermanagh, probably Down, maybe Meath because of the players they possess. I think them four will probably be ahead of Offaly, but fifth favourites of the Tailteann Cup, that won't be a bad omen for Offaly at all. They were all the Tailteann Cup semi-finalists last year. They did well in periods against Westmeath, but they were totally outclassed. But you'd think now that Offaly, they've had games under their belt now against this Louth team as well, which will definitely stand to them. I think that they scored 2-15 against a decent Louth defence, and they'll go into the Tailteann Cup with some positive vibes around the camp. And I think Offaly will do very well in the Tailteann Cup, to be honest with you. I think they'll get out of the group in all honesty. And who knows, if they get a Limerick or Meath in the group stage, I think Offaly could easily get to the Tailteann Cup quarterfinals outright if they get top of the group. So I think it's a very, very good season for Offaly so far, despite the passing of Liam Kearns. And I think Mark Crochet said on GAA GO stream afterwards there's instances like this with Liam Kearns, it could drive on a team, and it could be an incentive for them to say, the manager, he's looking down here, will be proud. And no doubt Liam Kearns would have been proud of them Offaly players yesterday for dying out on the pitch, in fairness to them. And, very good performance from them. From Offaly, they pulled up to Louth for large periods of the game. And, they'll go into the Tailteann Cup with confidence now.
Absolutely. And then I suppose moving on to the Ulster Championship, Armagh 4-10 down 12 points. Obviously a huge result from an Armagh perspective. Obviously Andrew Murnan getting a goal and a point. Rian O'Neill, I suppose, playing a critical part from an Armagh perspective once again, and they get themselves into a first Ulster final since 2008, and obviously 4 goals all coming in the first half as well. So look, in fairness to Armagh, like we would have looked at Cavan and Down as probably 2 sticky teams to play. But in fairness to Armagh, like, they done very, very well to come through these 2 tests with flying colours, really.
And they absolutely slaughtered them, in fairness to Armagh. And I thought this would obviously be one of the closest games out of the 3 to decide Sam Maguire and Tailteann Cup. But I wasn't watching the full game now, but it just seemed that Down didn't have, the expertise to get over Armagh, if you know what I mean. They're a good side. They have good young players coming through, as seen for their 20 teams on Wednesday night. But they just didn't have it against Armagh. And even with Owen Murdoch playing that game, I still think they would have struggled. So, yeah, I think Down, they're on a stage of their development now where, to be honest with you, I think they need a Tailteann Cup. If they win the Tailteann Cup, I think that'd be brilliant for Down football. If they go on and win the Under-20 Championship as well, that'd be an outstanding year for Down, and it's not all lost. But for Armagh, very, very good win. Very impressive against Cavan. Very impressive against Down. And the most impressive thing actually about them, 3-10 came without Rian O'Neill and Conor Turbot yesterday, which is incredible. You have to say there were scores all over the field for Armagh. We talked about the scores for Kildare being very, very poor. You look at Armagh yesterday, Shane McParland. I honestly didn't know much about this guy in the league. He scores a goal yesterday. That's 1-5 in 3 games for him. And he put up near the man of the match performance against Antrim as well in the first day out. So very good performance. I think he set up a goal as well, the first goal for Andrew Murnan, excuse me. So very, very good performance from Armagh. Kieran McGee will be absolutely delighted. And that stat is now gone. It's now banished. They have now reached their first Ulster final since 2008. So very good achievement for Armagh. And to be honest with you, from the outset, I didn't believe they could do it. Beat Antrim, Cavan and Down, but there you go, they did it, and they did it with flying colours. They did it without much fuss. So fair play to Armagh. They proved all the doubters, including yourself and myself, wrong, and they're in the Ulster final now.
And obviously at the start of the year, like, we all had big expectations for Armagh. Like, I remember making a video talking about why I believed Armagh could win the All-Ireland, and when you look at their players and the talent that they have in Rian O'Neill, in Ethan Rafferty between the sticks, the likes of Charlie O'Byrnes, Conor Turbot's come on leaps and bounds. And as you said, now Shane McPartland in around midfield has looked like a great addition to this Armagh side. Obviously, very disappointing league, and that very much set them back. But when you look at how well they beat Down and Cavan, like, is it fair to say maybe Armagh are now back in the conversation as a possible dark horse, maybe for something, for an All-Ireland, or possibly sort of, going under the radar a little bit?
To be honest, I think they are. When you look at the players Armagh have, the results they had against Down and Cavan, I think they're definitely going under the radar. But I think they need to prove it against a top team, starting with Derry in the Ulster final. If they manage to win that, I think that would be big for Armagh football in general, and big for Kieran McGeeney and the whole backroom team if they manage to do that. And someone was saying to me yesterday that Armagh, they need a trophy. They need an Inclusivity Cup. They need an Ulster Championship to, set them on their way to where they want to be, an All-Ireland contender. And I think an Ulster Championship at the end of the year for Armagh, despite what they do in the All-Ireland series, I think that'll be mission accomplished for them. To win an Ulster Championship like that, despite having a poor league campaign like they did, I think that'll be a brilliant achievement for Armagh. And to have Rian O'Neill back to score, I know he only scored 1 goal yesterday, 1 solitary goal, but the goal he got was absolute class. Like, he sold the dummy. It may be a bit questionable on the Down goalkeeper side, but like, to send the dummy and to just put it right in the bottom corner, like, that will... I think Amy Fitzmaurice mentioned in the Sunday game last night, the confidence that will instill into Rian O'Neill after the controversy towards the end of the league with Kieran McGeeney and the apparent bust-up, and to get a goal like that, that will definitely spread his confidence even more. And I think like he's ready to fly now against Derry. Only like Conor Turpin didn't perform well yesterday; he didn't score at all. But yet he scored 20 points in his previous 3 before that. So you think if them two step up to the mark, if Stephen Campbell steps up, Andrew Murnan, I think Armagh could have a very good year, starting off with a possible Ulster Championship win over Derry.
Absolutely. And I suppose you mentioned Derry there. Obviously, they were the other side who progressed into a Ulster final. They beat Monaghan by a scoreline of 121 to 210. Yeah, a comprehensive result in the end from a Derry perspective. Like, they started very strong. It was hard for Monaghan to keep up with Derry. And Derry just grew in confidence the more the game went on. Like, obviously, when these two played each other last year, Monaghan brought the game back and sort of made it a bit more of a test. But this time around, Derry just, kept their foot on the gas. And like, that's the thing about Derry, is that they don't get tired. They don't slow down. Like, even towards the end of the game, like, it looked like they could have played another 20 or 30 minutes, to be honest with you, and continued the sort of energy levels that they were playing with. So a brilliant performance again from Derry. And I suppose they're going to go into the Ulster final as favourites, you'd imagine.
You'd have to say so when you look at the league form from both of them and carrying on to the championship. Like, Derry, like, the worrying thing about Derry really for me was a few things. Number one was the strength and depth they have. But when as you mentioned there, it's probably not an issue considering most of their players can go on for full 70 minutes. So it's not much of an issue on that point. But the other point, and it was kind of evident in this game particularly, was the high ball in to the full back line. And I think that's a big worry. The Carl Gallagher goal was a prime example. Monaghan just put a ball in long, and it causes consternation. Like, it happened against Cork. It happened, I think, a couple of times against Dublin. It happened a few times against Fermanagh as well in the Ulster quarter-final. That's a worrying trend for Derry. That's 4 games in a row now that's happened. And I think Rory Gallagher will definitely want to, brush that up and, shove that problem away. But other than that, I thought their performance on Saturday was very, very impressive. Look, you look at Shane McGuigan, 9 points, 4 from play, excellent performance. And I genuinely stand by the point. He's one of the most underrated players in the whole country. Excellent. Forward to having your disposal. Ethan Doherty, very good. Paul Cassidy, excellent performance. Conor Glass, both defensively and offensively, excellent performance from him. So I think Derry performed absolutely incredible. Like, Chris McCaig was following Conor McManus all over the field as well and did a very good job on him. And you have to imagine Chrissy will be on Rian O'Neill for the Ulster final as well. So, like, all's on the up for Derry. But on the other side of the coin for Monaghan, look, they just didn't turn up, did they, Aaron? Like, they may as well have stayed on the late bus coming to Healy Park. Like, I think they were 5-10 minutes late, and then they just didn't seem to get off the bus, and it just translated. I think they only scored 1-1 from play in the whole first half, and that was from Carl O'Connell, which wasn't really good enough from a Monaghan point of view. Look, still going to the All-Ireland series with a bit of confidence considering their win over Tyrone, but the first half performances, I think Seamus Brady mentioned it on my podcast during the week as well, Monaghan's first half performances in weeks gone by, especially against Tyrone and this game against Derry on Saturday, were very, very poor. Like, Tyrone dominated them in the first half. Derry dominated them in the next game in the first half. Like, that would be a huge worry for Vinnie Corey going forward. They've made some good progress under him, more progress than I'd imagined at the start of the season, but they have to brush that up. They have to start fast. If they don't start fast, they most likely will end up getting beat.
Absolutely. Joe Blogg says Derry were awesome. No evidence Monaghan management knew how to beat Derry. And yeah, like, it did just seem like a very straightforward result from a Derry perspective, and it was probably actually one of the most one-sided games of the weekend, which was surprising, to be honest with you. I don't think anyone would have predicted that at the start of the weekend. I think a lot of us were looking towards this game to probably be the most competitive. But as you said, yeah, like, probably a few vulnerabilities from a Derry perspective, maybe defensively conceding a couple of goals and everything else. But as you said, from a Monaghan perspective, like, they'll go into as one of the pot 3 sides. And obviously with the way the group stages are sort of expected to go, with the fact that 3 teams will get out of it, like, you'd imagine they should, depending on which pot 2 side they get, you'd imagine they've a strong chance of getting into that preliminary round anyways. And we'll definitely be seeing more of Monaghan in the championship this year.
You would, maybe. Like, you look at the forwards they have, and you definitely stand by that point. But I'm going back to the first half performances. Like a team like Clare, a team like Sligo, no matter how small they are, might look at that staff from Monaghan and think, whoa, their first half performances aren't particularly good. We could go after them from the very, very off. And then maybe sit back in the second half and invite pressure. And then we could win the game. That might be the worrying aspect for this Monaghan team. I think they have the players, no doubt about it. Jack McCarron, Conor McManus, Micheál Bannigan, Sean Jones off the bench. Art Mulligan, who weirdly enough wasn't in the squad against Derry, so I don't know what's going on there. But they do have some excellent players, Monaghan. And I just would be worried about their first half performances more than anything in terms of the All-Ireland series. So, yeah, I still think there's doubts about Monaghan, whether they'll progress, despite the fact 3 teams progress out of it. But I still think they're a very, very strong outfit. Of Vic Corey's getting them set up well. They're the 6th best team in terms of Alliance League rankings. They're there for a reason. And I think Monaghan could cause trouble, but they have to brush up on their first half performances. If they don't do that in the next few weeks, I think they could be in trouble in a good few games coming on down the stretch of the summer.
Yeah, and I suppose before we move on to some of the weekend's hurling action, we'll just have a look at actually I suppose how it's going to look in terms of the draw, like for the Sam Maguire. So you can kind of see it there. I'll just move my head out of the way ever so slightly, but you can see there the pot one sides, Kerry, Dublin, and Derry, obviously provided if they, they're the favourites anyway to win their provincial finals. Clare, Sligo, Clare, Louth, and Armagh, as you would expect, would be the pot 2 sides. Although Armagh, Derry will be close, and as we said, look, you'd certainly give Louth a chance against the Dubs. In fairness, and then the 3rd and 4th pot seeds are 100% guaranteed. So it's Mayo, Roscommon, Tyrone, and Monaghan. And then you've got Donegal, Cork, Kildare, and Westmeath as the pot 4 sides. And then the Tailteann Cup, this is how it's looking here. Obviously, these images are taken from GAA League tables on Twitter, so make sure to give them a follow when you get a chance. But you'll see here the first seeds. This is obviously based on the league rankings. So Meath, Cavan, Fermanagh, and Limerick are the pot 1 sides. Down, Offaly, Antrim, and Wicklow are the pot 2 sides. Longford, Tipperary, Laois, and Wexford are the pot 3 sides. And Leitrim, Carlow, Waterford, and London are the pot 4 sides. So yeah, look, I suppose it's going to be interesting to obviously see the draw tomorrow. And obviously when you look at the sides in the Sam Maguire and Tailteann Cup, I mean, it should make for an interesting draw, and hopefully we get some big games over.
Hopefully so, yeah. And first and foremost, like, I'm delighted that Cork actually made the Sam Maguire Cup. Like, it would have been tad embarrassing if we ended up in the Tailteann Cup, but there you go. We're in the Sam Maguire now. But in terms of the groups, I think there could be some very interesting groups. Like, I think a lot of people said it on the rounds on social media. There could be a group of debt containing, being David's advocate from a Dublin point of view at the moment. Like, if they lose to Louth in Leinster final, which we mentioned earlier on the chat, could be a possibility. They could be in a group with Kerry, Mayo, and I would say tentatively Donegal. That's still a tough group for Dublin. And I think all the popcorn will be out definitely, but from your point of view, Aaron, I think that won't be pleasant at all. For Kerry, I think they'll be licking their lips because they want a challenge. They don't get any in Munster. Mayo, I think they'll be absolutely, breaking it as well. Donegal will be absolutely breaking it if that, thing comes to pass. But realistically, I would say a group of death would be possibly Galway, Armagh, Mayo, and probably Donegal. Probably. I'm saying it again tentatively. But imagine a group like that, and a group containing, let's say, Derry, Sligo, Monaghan, or Derry, Sligo, Roscommon, and Cork. Imagine a group like that. I think that'll be a big opportunity for any lower side, but we're only speculating now. That'll be, some excellent ties in general. But yeah, the Sam Maguire Cup looks very, very interesting this year, and looking forward to the draw tomorrow afternoon, more or less. But the Tailteann Cup, more so very interesting as well. You look at the pot 1 teams there: Meath, Fermanagh, Limerick, and Cavan. Like I'd say Fermanagh and Cavan will be going in with confidence. Meath, it could go one or two ways for Meath. You could think, if some of them players might just leave for America, they might just drop out of the panel. Like Jordan Morris has it. Colin's in the backroom team with Meath at the moment. Limerick aren't as they once were, so I would imagine any team in pot 2 and 3 would want either one of those teams as their pot 1 side. Bit frustrating that New York were there as preliminary quarterfinalists. I think that's very, very annoying, to be honest with you. But look, it is what it is. I've ranted and raved about it over the last few weeks, and GAA do nothing. So, look, it's interesting draws in store tomorrow afternoon, should I say, on GAA Go. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to getting stuck into them.
Absolutely, and I'll definitely do some sort of reaction to the draws anyway, and discuss them a little bit tomorrow when they happen. But I suppose player of the week and moment of the week from the weekend's football action.
Player of the week, it's a tough one now. Player of the week, I'm actually thinking, obvious, Kieran Downey for Louth, 7 points. Excellent performance from him. I think he hit all his shots over the bar, so I think he's definite for player of the week. Moment of the week. Oh, Jesus. You know what? I'm going to go a bit of a controversial one. Glenn Ryan's interview after the Dublin game. I'm going to go for that because, it stirred a lot of controversy around social media in general. And, quick one on ladies football as well. Michelle Guckin from Leitrim became the second player to hit 45. That equates to 2 points as well. So that's up there with moment of the week as well. So only her and Roisin Leonard have managed that in ladies football. So very good achievement from her and Leitrim. So, probably those would be my 2 moments of the week.
Absolutely, yeah. And I will actually have a ladies football predictions video out actually in the next couple of days or so, just putting that together at the moment. But yeah, I suppose for myself, player of the week, I'd probably go Samuel Roy. Maybe thought his performance in extra time was outstanding. And then probably Louth reaching their first Leinster final since 2010, I think is as moment of the week there. I'm sure some people could say the fact that Kildare drove Dublin quite close, and that was a lot more competitive game than we thought. Some neutrals would probably say that was moment of the week, but obviously for myself, as a Dublin fan, I can't quite agree with that, unfortunately. But there we go. I suppose we'll run on to the weekend's hurling action then, and there was definitely, I suppose, a lot of big talking points from the weekend's All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship action. I mean, what a result, obviously, for Clare beating Limerick. Limerick's first defeat since 2019 in the championship. Cork, obviously, your own side, got a victory against Waterford. Kilkenny and Galway being held level. And then, obviously, results for Wexford and Dublin as well in the Leinster Championship. So we'll start with Limerick versus Clare. Limerick 220, Clare 124. Big result for Clare. First time they've won in the Gaelic rounds in the championship. A game that ebbed and flowed at different moments. Clare always looked like the better side throughout the majority of the 70 minutes. And yeah, first defeat for Limerick since 2019. They'd won 17 championship games in a row. They were closing in on Kilkenny's record of 21 games without a defeat. Obviously, Limerick 17 games without a defeat. And here we go. What a result for the Banner County.
Huge results, and a huge result in terms of the context of the All-Ireland Hurling Championship as well. That Limerick can be beaten. This Limerick team can be beaten. Like in 2020, 21, 22, they looked absolutely unbeatable. And even against Waterford, I know they performed very poorly, and you were thinking, okay, there's a bit of shaky moments, but still Limerick got the job done. And you look at the players on the field, you're thinking, oh, okay, Clare don't really have much of a hope. But then Clare come out like players possessed. They absolutely gave everything. And in fairness to Clare, they put it out the fire. I think the main difference, Aaron, from this week to last week against Tipperary, they had the presence of David Fitzgerald in midfield. He was missing last week because of a stupid suspension against Cork in the league. And yeah, he comes back this week and he changes the team completely. Him in midfield, like last year, he was up. I think he won an All-Star in the end. Excellent showing from last year. This season, what a performance so far against Limerick, and he definitely has more to come in this championship, and more so for the Munster Championship, more so than the All-Ireland Championship. The context around that, it opens up massively now. You look at the Munster Championship, you could disregard Waterford, they aren't good enough. But you look at the 4 teams now, Clare, Tipperary, Limerick and Cork. I think 2 of those could easily get to a Munster final now. It's not just solely Limerick. So that's going to be big, really. So, yeah, it's going to be a big Big to see how the Munster Championship progresses, but for Clare, what a performance and what a showing for Peter Duggan to get that goal to swipe away Will O'Donoghue like he did. Brilliant goal from him. And brilliant performance from Mark Rogers as well. And why I like this Clare team, like Tony Kelly and Shane O'Donnell have been their main players over the last 2 seasons, more so Tony Kelly. But players like Mark Rogers stepped up the other night, hit a sideline out of nowhere, hits 3 points overall, excellent performance. David Fitzgerald in midfield, as I mentioned. Adam Hogan, what a performance, a cornerback from the young lad. I think he's about 19 or 20. What a performance from the young lad. And yeah, brilliant victory for Clare, and that will do the world of good for Brian Lohan, because that Clare team should have beat Limerick last year. They fell short on 2 occasions of beating Limerick, but this season they put they put down a marker and they beat Limerick, so fair play to them.
And I suppose when you look at Clare's team from 1 to 15, as you said, like I think in previous years everyone looked at Tony Kelly and thought, like, if you keep Tony Kelly quiet, if you keep him out of the game, you're halfway to stopping Clare. But as we're seeing now, like they have a wealth of players. Since Peter Duggan's obviously come back from Australia, Aidan McCarthy's back from injury this year. Mark Rogers has struggled with injuries over the last couple of seasons as well, and he's now starting for this Clare team. John Conlon's obviously in there as well. What a performance it was from him, with his brother's wedding on the same day as well, which was absolute madness. But then, and then as you said, David Fitzgerald in midfield. I mean, like Clare from 1 to 15, in terms of their start 15, probably have one of the best teams in the country. And like there has been a lot of disrespect thrown at Clare going into the championship this year. And whether it's because of the fact they were poor in the league, or whether it was because they were, I suppose, beaten very, very comprehensively against Kilkenny in the semi-finals last year. But when you look at Clare starting 15, like they're a match for anyone in this country.
They are. And when you look at the All-Ireland final, the All-Ireland semi-final was another, indicator to people that Clare may not have be a threat this season. When you look at the league, fair enough. But to be honest, like I think the lads from the Wexford Hurling podcast and my podcast during the week were just saying we shouldn't take the league for granted. Like the league is nothing in hurling, and we've been saying that for weeks now, to be honest with you. But more so the All-Ireland semi-final last year, Clare against Kilkenny. Clare laid down last year, and it was pretty poor from them against Kilkenny, and Kilkenny ran all over them, especially in that first half. And you were thinking, are Clare just a one team really, or one year team more or less? And history would have suggested that they were, because you looked down through the years, and I studied this last season. 2013 they win the All-Ireland, 2014 they struggled, they lose to Wexford in the qualifiers, and this was a Wexford team that was under the cosh for years. 2018 they reached the All-Ireland semi-finals, but then 2019 they get knocked out of Munster. And you're thinking, is the same going to happen again? Are Clare going to show their spots once again? But as shown this year, it's far from that. And I think that's a credit to Brian Lohan, that he's got the mentality for these Clare hurlers out of their system, really. And he's saying, we can do 2 years in a row. We're not like any of those teams, or Davy Fitz or any of the management teams. We're a different Clare team, and we're going to go simply for this season. And I think that's a credit to Brian Lohan and his management team for that. Like, I think he actually made a kind of a ballsy move, taking out the goalkeeper Eamon Foodie. Yes, he made errors against Tipperary, but to do that and to bring in Eivor Quilligan for this game, incredible move it turned out to be, and very, very risky move in general at the start of the game. But Brian Lohan isn't afraid to make these decisions, and like he's saying to the likes of Peter Duggan, and that would indicate to the likes of Peter Duggan, Tony Kelly, Shane O'Donnell, if you perform poorly in one game, you're hooked. And that's the temperament that Clare need to get to the likes of Limerick's level, to Kilkenny's level, to Galway's level. And it's a brilliant performance for Clare, and is definitely with the hurling championship wide open.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Limerick perspective, then obviously, another disappointing performance. I felt they were a lot better in this game, in fairness, than they were at the opening day against Waterford, and I think it was more so down to Clare's brilliance. But when you look at it, like Limerick could have been sat there with 0 points now. Like Waterford should have beat them a couple of weeks ago, and obviously in this game as well, like there was, that late Shamey Flanagan goal probably kept it within touch and distance, but they were probably well beaten at times as well. Like, and it wasn't like Limerick led. Limerick started quite well, but Clare, once they got going, like the lead never really went away. And you're looking at it and thinking, like, obviously Limerick gave a lot in the league, and they went full tilt, and They've won 3 in a row, as we obviously know, in the All-Ireland Championship. Like, is the evidence maybe suggesting from their performance against Clare and even the performance against Waterford that maybe they're not going to win the All-Ireland as easily as we thought, and maybe they won't even get out of Munster because their opening 2 performances anyway haven't been at the standard we're used to seeing from Limerick?
You might think that way, but we're still talking about one of the greatest teams of all time. Let's not forget, Aaron. Like, this Limerick team have produced performances that are just out of the world over the last few seasons, and you think they have the temperament to change this around. They have 2 games now to change their season. You would imagine they'll beat Cork in the Gaelic grounds. I just don't think Cork are good enough to beat them in Limerick this time around. I think the key for Limerick to get out of Munster, more or less, is to beat Tipperary in Semple Stadium. And I think like that could be a risky move, because Tipperary are a different animal this season than they were last season, and that's going to be a difficult assignment for Limerick, definitely. But I still think, with the quality of players they have, with the temperament that's around the dressing room, with John Coyley there and Paul Kinnerk, being excellent coaches, I still think Limerick have enough to go to Munster. They should. Like, you look at the players they have at their disposal, you look at the players there. Like, Garrett Haverty wasn't playing against Clare. Like, imagine if he was playing. Like, these sorts of things. And I think Limerick still have enough to get out of Munster in general. And in general sense, like, if they finish third Munster, it won't particularly be a bad thing, because they'll just realise, okay, we have stuff to work on, go into the All-Ireland series. They'll play the Joe McDonough Cup runners-up, which will most likely be a Carlow, a Kerry, or a Laois, and they should absolutely pummel them, and to get into the All-Ireland quarterfinals against Galway, who, to be fair, like, Limerick are a much better team than Galway when you look at the players, the personnel and all that. So I still think Limerick have it in them to have a very good summer, but they have to change their performance levels around even more so. And John Coyley is definitely the manager to do that. They have the players, they have the management, they have the temperament. I think Limerick will be absolutely fine in Munster, but maybe the game against Clare this weekend will set a few doubts in the minds of the players.
Yeah, like, I suppose, yeah, like, when you think about it, when they lost to Kilkenny, they obviously came back a year later and, went on an incredible run. And, we know the age profile of this Limerick side is perfect. They have great under-20 hurlers making the breakthrough, obviously, at the moment. As you said, one of the best coaches in the game in John Coyley, Paul Kinnerk, obviously, there in the background as well. So you'd imagine Limerick will go back to the drawing board, that they'll realise where they went wrong. And look, it also has the potential to be a very good thing for Limerick again. They got a defeat, and it's a defeat that hasn't knocked them out of the championship. It's something they can learn from. They can look at it and think, well, where did we go wrong? And if they do end up playing Clare at some point further on down the line in the championship, whether it's in a Munster final or even beyond that, you would look at it and think, they'll surely take learnings from that and apply it, into going into those games. And as you said, when you look at the wealth of their squad, the players that they have, the mentality of the players as well, which I think is crucial as well to get over big games time and time again. Look, I do agree with you. I think they should be okay, but at the same time, it probably is an eye-opener for the rest of the country. And I'd say the likes of Galway, Cork, obviously Clare themselves, Kilkenny, will probably be looking at that result and thinking, okay, maybe we've more of a chance this year than we initially would have thought. Maybe not so much the players, but definitely the supporters anyway.
The supporters, definitely, because Cork fans and Kilkenny fans are probably one of the most hyped up supporters in the whole country, to be honest, when it comes to bigging up their team, to be honest with you. But in terms of the players and the coaches, like, I think honestly, the only thing before this season even started, I would have thought the only teams that were capable of beating this great Limerick team were Clare, Kilkenny, possibly Galway, maybe Tipperary if they got their house in order. That's the only 4, and I would stick to that point. I definitely do. I don't think Cork are good enough to beat Limerick. Simply enough. I think we'll get out to Cork in a minute, but I think our players are way too inconsistent. We're far too reliant on Patrick Horgan. That's just my honest opinion on it. And I don't think that'll be sustainable going on further down the line. Waterford, we know about them, not good enough. Dublin, Wexford, we know, not good enough. Tipperary, look, I'd be actually interested to see how Tipperary approach the Limerick game in a few weeks' time. I think that game's on May 21st. And that's another thing actually with Limerick. They have 3 more weeks now before the Tip game, their next game. They have a lot of time to, right the wrongs of the Clare game. They have a lot of time to fix, problems that they may have. And they have a lot of time to rest. And I think that'll be very good for the Limerick team before they go into them crunch games against Tip and Cork. So I still think not all is lost for Limerick, but I still think those 4 teams I mentioned are probably the only teams that are capable of beating Limerick this season. And I stick by that point, even if we're in May right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would most certainly agree with you there. In fairness, moving on to, as you said, the Cork game was Cork 27 points, Waterford 18 points. Big win for Cork, as you said. Very disappointed with Waterford. Didn't score their first point from play, I think, until around the 25th or 26th minute. Like 2 points just on the board at that stage, and that was from place balls. So, like, very comfortable from Cork. Like, I know Waterford brought it back a little bit in the second half, but this was comprehensive stuff, really, from the Rebels, and very disappointing from a Daisha point of view.
Very poor from Waterford, yeah. 1 point from play in the first half, not good at all. And like, it's a difficult one because Davy Fitz, I respect him as a coach, I respect him as a manager. He's done a lot of good work even for the GAA and Ireland, for his family. He did a lot of good work for Cork last year. Fair play to him. But it just doesn't seem to be gelling with Waterford this year. In terms of league, in terms of championship, they just seem off the pace. And I don't know what it is with Waterford. Like, their top scorer for play yesterday was Caleb Lyons with 2 points, a wing back. That's their problems, simply their problems. And the worry, just from a Cork point of view for a moment, like, the worrying thing for Cork, Waterford, as bad as they were yesterday, Waterford had 3 goal chances, and any other day they could have stuck those away. And that's a worrying sign for Cork. I know Cork fans will look at it and think, okay, Munster Championship, we could go for Limerick despite with Clare beating them. It's a big opportunity for us. But I'd be looking more at the fact why we conceded 3 goal chances against a poor Waterford side. It's like, it's a bad omen for Cork going down the line. Yeah, it was great that Darragh Fitzgibbon got back into full fitness. Robbie O'Flynn, very good, getting 6 points between them coming back from injury. We didn't think Robbie O'Flynn would be back to full fitness after the Limerick game, so fair play to him. But I'd be looking at the fact we could see 3 goal chances to Waterford, and that's very poor. This is a Waterford team without Tyler Burke as well, who had 4 turnovers in the first 20 minutes against Limerick and was absolutely epitome to the Waterford team in the first 20 minutes of that Limerick game. But he's gone now. Waterford are actually weakened. So, like, I'm thinking Cork should actually slaughter Waterford with the performance levels there, with Tyler Burke missing, with Austin Gleeson on the bench. You're thinking Cork should ram home. They didn't. They only won by 9 points, which, to be honest, in terms of hurling, that's not really a hammering, if you know what I mean, Aaron, even though it seemed like a hammering. So that'd be worrying from Cork point of view, in my opinion. I wouldn't be positive about the victory, but to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, the game was dead after half-time. Like, Waterford didn't put up a challenge at all, and 1 point from play definitely showed that. With Tyler Burke missing, Waterford were just missing in general all over the field. But good enough win for Cork, but the tougher test will definitely come. Tipperary next week. If Cork can produce a performance there, I'd be more positive then. But I'm not sure they will, with that performance against Waterford, conceding 3 goal chances. Imagine conceding goal chances to Jake Morris, Conor Bowe, Jason Ford. We will get punished severely. So that'll be a negative from Cork point of view. From a Waterford point of view, as far as I'm concerned, Aaron, season over, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think 2 defeats, I think is definitely quite heavy at this stage. But, like, from a Cork perspective, like, I'd be curious to kind of get more of an opinion on where you think Cork are obviously at this year. Like, obviously got to the league final, the league semi-final, and they're obviously beaten quite comprehensively that day by Kilkenny, and you're looking at it from a Cork perspective. Like, they have plenty of great hurlers, as you said, Patrick Horgan, Darragh Fitzgibbon obviously scoring 4 points, Declan Dalton back in the side, Shane Kingston, when he's playing, looks like a top class hurler for Cork, but doesn't seem to get a run consistently for whatever reason. So, like, when you're looking at it, like, you have a lot of great players, but it just seems like you can't quite fit them all together. And I don't know if it's because it's a new management and everything else, but just doesn't seem to be quite clicking for Cork. And look, maybe it is because it is Pat Ryan's first season, I suppose, after all.
It is, yeah, and I still have confidence about Pat Ryan in future years. I think he's an excellent coach, won 2 under-20s in a row for a reason. Very good manager. I think he's the best manager to nurture young talent through. But in terms of this season, I don't think Cork are good enough. simply to get out of Munster. Because, like, okay, they might be good enough, you know, to beat a Waterford, to beat a Wexford, to beat a Dublin, fair enough. And that's where Cork are at. But you look at the other teams in Munster, the level they're at the moment. Limerick are one of the best teams I've ever seen. Clare, you look at their performance on Saturday night and you look at the players they have in their starting 15. Tipperary are motoring on superbly this season. Cork won't be able to deal with them, in my honest opinion. And I just think, look, we move back to the point, you talked about Stephen Cluxton with Dublin footballers and stuff like that, and one of the comments said we are moving on from the 6 in a row team and stuff like that with the Dublin footballers. I'd apply the same kind of logic, even though they aren't that successful, not near as successful. But the Cork hurlers with Patrick Horgan, for instance, look, okay, he scored 8 points, he scored 2 from play, he scored a brilliant point from the sideline. But let's put it into perspective, Aaron. He's 35 years of age, and he's our main player. You know, and that's not going to be good enough in terms of getting on Munster, in my honest opinion. I just think the players around Horgan are too inconsistent, honestly, to be honest with you. Kingston, excellent player, I think, but he just needs more consistency as a game. Dalton, yes, he scored, I think it was 6 points in the league against Galway. He scored 3 points yesterday. But in the other games, he's anonymous. Why is that? You know, and I just think, yes, they've good, hard-working players. I think Darragh Fitzgibbon, Kieran Joyce, I think are exceptional players, in my honest opinion. But I just think all over the field, I think we've players that are way too inconsistent to not so much to beat Dublin, Wexford, and all them sort of teams, Waterford included, because they're way below our level. But in terms of beating Clare, Tip, Limerick, because that's where we need to, you know, set our priorities right now. Cork aren't good enough to beat those sides, unfortunately, and that's just the honest truth of it. To be honest with you, but I just don't think we're up to the level of those 3 sides at this particular moment. It will tell the full story once we reach the game against Tipperary on Saturday. But to be honest with you, Aaron, even after that big win over Waterford, I'm not confident before the Tipperary game next Saturday.
Yeah, I think so. Like, and I agree with you as well. Like, I think, like, when you look at, you look at a side like Clare, for example, who, you know, maybe in the past were a little bit reliant on Tony Kelly, but now they found a sprinkle of scores from other players. And you look at Kilkenny as well, over Marky Ford and TJ Reid, but now they're finding the likes of, you know, Adrian Mullen, Billy Drennan, Owen Cody, a wealth of options from 1 to 15. And I agree with your point there as well. In fairness, just looking at the league table then, so as we can see, Cork are, funnily enough, on top with score difference there with 2 points. Obviously, Tipperary in second with 2 points as well, and Limerick, Clare both on 2 points, and Waterford down near the bottom. I suppose it's wide open as anything, but as you said there, you'd imagine Waterford are probably gone. In fact, they play Tipperary and Clare as well, who are in flying form in the last 2 games. It's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, and as I said previously, Aaron, as far as I'm concerned, season over. Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult for Waterford to claw back. I just think as soon as Tyler Burke went off with that injury, he's so crucial to the team. I think that was the end of the season. Good luck. I don't think they're good enough without him. Like Austin Gleeson is a good player, Desi Hutchinson, they've smashing players, Patrick Fitzgerald, but then again, Patrick Fitzgerald's 18 or 19? 18, I think it is. And he's one of their main scorers. You know, that's very, very worrying from Waterford point of view. And as far as I'm concerned, yeah, it's their season over. But season much very on for the other 4 teams. Funny enough, Cork are top, but I think honestly we'll finish 4th. I think the next game against Tipperary will tell an awful lot about both teams in general, not just Cork. I think it will tell a whole lot about Tipperary as well. Very, very efficient performance against Clare. A Clare team that will go on to beat Limerick afterwards. But I think the test is to follow up for Tipperary now. And I think that they go on and beat Cork. I think you'd fancy them to get out of Munster in general.
Yeah, I suppose we'll move on to the Leinster Hurling Championship then. It was Kilkenny, 28 points. Galway, 125. And obviously a late point from Declan McLaughlin on his championship debut, levelling the game up when Kilkenny looked home and hosed at one point in the game. Just looking at some scores, Brian Concannon with 1-5 for Galway, Evan Nyland with 7 points, and for Kilkenny, the likes of TJ Reid and Owen Cody doing very well there. TJ Reid with 9 points, Owen Cody with 6. A draw, like, probably, you know, I suppose with the way the Leinster Championship is, a result here probably wasn't that consequential, really. But again, it proves that, like, when you look at Kilkenny and Galway in the last couple of seasons, there's only usually been 1-2 points in a couple of draws here and there. And I suppose this one was no different.
Yeah, and it was going to be close from the offset of this game. Like Brian O'Callaghan, it was a bit of a crucial. It was a bit of a, a bit of a controversial goal in many ways, because I looked at the highlights there. Jeez, how many steps did you have to take to get into the back of the net? They're a good finish from fairness, and the scoring 1-5 was an excellent return, but that goal shouldn't have been allowed. And we go back to consistency in decision making and all that in games. But look, I think a draw was a fair result. Like, you look at Adrian Mullen performed well yesterday. Owen Cody with 6 points. Very good performance. TJ Reid back into full fitness. Like, if Billy Drennan gets back up to speed as well. Kilkenny have a lethal forward line. Dark Harcourt's doing well in midfield at the moment. Mikey Butler, very good at corner back. But Galway, they found the fight and they got it out of the bag. Like, it looked like for a period of the game you were thinking Galway had something there. They were going to go on and win the game with their lethal forwards. Kilkenny pegged it back, but then Declan McLaughlin, what a debut. What a man to hit that point from that distance out to that under that amount of pressure. Very good point from McLaughlin indeed. And very good showing from Galway in the end to get that result. And I think these two sides, ultimately, I think these two sides will be in the Leinster final, no matter what happens. I think it's a good practice run for both sides, and both sides won't be giving too much away before that. But I think, honestly, in terms of Leinster title, Galway need it more than Kilkenny do, because Galway haven't won one since 2018. It's a long time now for Galway to win one. So I think Henry Shefflin will definitely get his players up, riled up. But it was disappointing not to see as much drama about handshakes in general about this game this time round. But look, we had a very good game to make up for it. So well done to both sides.
Yeah, and I seen Marty Morrissey, I think, a full time. If it was Marty Morrissey that was on commentary, I think he was saying, like, oh, they already shook hands there, like, it already happened. Just kind of like the camera's obviously trying to zoom in on Henry Shefflin just to see if there was any fuss. But yeah, like, I suppose, like, the main takeaway from a Galway perspective is, as you said, like, Brian Concannon did score 1-5. Evan Nyland scored 7 points. Like, it does seem like the younger players are starting to make more of an impact now with Galway as opposed to previous seasons. And you were kind of waiting for that for a while, to be honest with you, when you looked at some of the underage success that they'd been having. So, like, that will give Henry Shefflin, this Galway side, a lot of confidence, because, like, similar to Cork, like, they have a lot of players, a lot of options. And for Henry Shefflin, it's just been about putting the pieces of the jigsaw together. And obviously, replacing the likes of Joe Cannon in the last couple of years has been very difficult. But when you look at some of these younger lads coming in, they're making a big impact now for Galway.
They are, and they've the right manager to nurture that talent in Henry. He's a very good manager. Like, when you looked at the way he dealt with the young talent in Ballyhale as well, the likes of Owen Cody and Adrian Mullen developed under his stewardship as well. So I think he's definitely the player to give the Galway players belief as well. So I think Henry Shefflin's the right man to do that. Galway have some very good young talent coming through, but in general terms of the Leinster Championship for these two sides, like, where Dublin and Wexford are at, I don't want to be disrespectful, no harm, but I just think Dublin and Wexford are not at the level of Galway and Kilkenny at this particular moment in time. So I think it'll probably be a downer for Galway and Kilkenny go down further into the championship, because you look at the teams in Munster, you look at Clare, Tipperary, Limerick, Cork, if they make it out. I think they'll be more battle-hardened than the likes of Galway and Kilkenny. And that'll be a negative for those type of sides, in my opinion. But look, I think Galway are motoring on nicely under Henry. They have a nice mix of youth and a bit of experience with Dahi Burke and Gareth McInerney in the back line. I think they did excellent in the game I watched against Wexford as well. So they're doing nicely. Galway, Ronan Glenn in midfield. Joseph Cooney's now moved up to the half-back line as well, and done very well there, as much as he did in forward positions last season when he nearly got an All-Star. So I think Galway are doing well, and Henry is definitely the right man to steer the ship.
Yeah, just looking at the last two games then in the Leinster Championship, so it was Wexford 130, Antrim 126, and it was Dublin 223, Westmeath 114. Just run through some of the scores in the Wexford Antrim game. It was Lee Chin who scored 8 points, Rory O'Connor with 7, and Cathal Dunbar scoring a goal and 2 points there as well. And for Antrim, definitely made a close game of it once again, and maybe Antrim are definitely closing the gap on the likes of Dublin and Wexford. When you look at the last two results, Conal Cunning again outstanding, 13 points from him. James McNaughton with 1-1, and a wealth of scores there as well. The likes of Keelan Malloy, Conor Johnston, Niall O'Connor all getting on the score sheet there. And for Dublin, Donald Burke scoring 1-9. Keane Boland again coming up trumps. He scored a goal and 2 points. Alex Considine getting on the score sheet with 2 points as well, which was good to see. Kieran Doyle was Westmeath's top scorer there with 9 points, and Niall Mitchell was the man who grabbed them a goal. And just looking at how that means for the Leinster hurling championship table then after two matches. So Kilkenny and Dublin both on 3 points. Galway on 3 points as well. Wexford are on 2 points. Antrim on a single point, and Westmeath on 0. So I suppose any thoughts on either one of those two results? I mean, first of all, another great performance from an Antrim perspective. Wexford seeing it through, and Dublin get their first win of the season, but very much expected, against this Westmeath side.
Yeah, to be honest, Dublin Westmeath was pretty much expected, to be honest with you. I think the most entertaining thing was Joe Fortune and Micheál Donoghue at the end of the game. I don't know what you think about this yourself, Aaron. It was a bit controversial what Micheál Donoghue was saying. Like, from my point of view, was like, what are Westmeath supposed to do? Just sit back from Dublin? Not put shoulders or anything like that. And that was what Micheál Donoghue was implying, and I think it was the utter disrespect, to be honest with you. And it was a good win for Dublin, but it was kind of blighted by that, to be honest with you. And very bad comments indeed. But as for the Wexford Antrim game, Antrim, excellent performance again. I didn't think they had it in them going down all the way to Wexford Park and putting in that performance. And very, very good performance from the Conal Cunning, James McNaughton, very good. Neil McManus scoring a few points there as well, I see. So very good performance from them. But Wexford, they saw through. And I suppose that's what you need out of a team to grind out maybe third position, because that's what Wexford are vying for with Dublin at the moment. Unfortunately, they're not going to get close to a Leinster title. So that's what they're going for. And to, vie with Dublin, they need to beat sides like Antrim, and which Dublin failed to do last week. And that's a sign that Wexford are doing well in fairness to them. And it will be interesting now, Wexford against Dublin, Croke Park on Saturday. And a few bits of things, to be honest with you. I think there was a news story, like Lee Chin scoring 8 points, excellent performance from Lee Chin. And to do it after the abuse he sustained over the last few weeks was that was brilliant, him showing up and scoring 8 points like that. For the guy that only got a 48-week ban, disgrace. I mean, he should not go into a hurling game again after that. And that was, what's that example going to set to, people that want to play a GAA from a younger age? Inclusivity. Yeah. It's wrong. It really is wrong. And that guy should get banned for life. Simple as. There should be no arguments about that. And another thing that was a disgrace as well, Wexford and Dublin being played in Croke Park. I think Joe Canning mentioned this at the Saturday-Sunday game last night. Why? Just why? Seriously, I honestly don't. I think it actually suits, from your annoyance, I'd say, Aaron, I think it will suit Wexford more, because they can play over an expansive hurling, and Dublin don't have, the whole fortress that's Parnell Park. And I think it's an utter disgrace, to be honest with you, that it's going to be played in Croke Park. And money talks yet again. Yeah,
it's a strange one, all right, because I don't know, I don't know if there'd be more people in Croke Park than there would be in Parnell Park. Like, maybe more Wexford fans will travel, and maybe Wexford fans might fill it out more. But I'd imagine it would be the same sort of Dublin contingency that would be in Parnell Park, that, the same amount that will be in Croke Park. So it is an interesting one, all right. Like, obviously we'll have to see when the game is played. And I'm not too sure what it is. Like, we played Westmeath in Parnell Park, now we're playing Wexford in Croke Park. Like, I don't understand why we're switching it around, and we're playing in different stadiums, and we're going to Croke Park and everything else. And all the emphasis is on Dublin to play in Croke Park. Like, I just don't really, it just doesn't really make a huge amount of sense to me, especially with how the Dublin hurlers played. But look, at the same time, the footballers are in Croke Park, so maybe that's the thing. They want to try to be consistent, and it probably doesn't make sense to have the footballers in Croke Park and the hurlers in Parnell Park. But you could argue both should probably be in Parnell Park, in fairness. And yeah, to follow up what you said there about the 48-week ban for the person who racially abused Lee Chin, I completely agree as well. Like, I think absolute madness, really, that it is only a 48-week ban. You wonder as well how they even can police it. Do you know what I mean? Like, going into games and club games and everything else, how do you keep control of that? Like, I think that there should have been two options for me. One, ban for life. There should be no way into a Wexford game, no way into a GAA game. Or option two, 5-year ban, but with some sort of evidence that you're attending education classes to try and understand, to understand, what you can and can't say clearly, and sort of, I suppose, make yourself, create a bit more awareness there. But yeah, I suppose those would be my opinions on those matters anyway.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, actually, the 5-year thing about getting classes on that. And I think we all need to be educated, to be honest with you, Aaron. It's a changing Ireland, and we need to respect other people coming in. I think Ikem Ogawaro, the Clare footballer, he's speaking to Ashton O'Reilly, he was speaking to RT Sport as well about. I think he spoke to Claire Byrne on her RT radio show about this as well, and saying the game is for everyone. And this is a guy that he moved he was born in Dublin to Nigerian parents. He moved down to Clare, played football with Clare, and he's been absolutely excellent in that win over Limerick to reach the Munster final. But despite these brilliant performances, for Boyd Lucia as well from Westmeath is another example to this as well. Excellent performance for Westmeath over the last few seasons. But we still have these problems. We still have these problems in GAA games. And surely, Super Value is sponsoring the All-Ireland Football Championship, and it should be the same in hurling. The game is for everyone. Inclusivity has to be included into the GAA. And it has to be over the next few weeks. You look at Zach Moradi scoring that point in Croke Park for Leeds from I think it was the Maguire Cup final a few years ago. I thought that was the point we were thinking, okay, GAA is for everyone here. But clearly, some people have just not moved on from that. And that's the sad thing from that, Aaron. And I think we definitely need to take more classes. There definitely needs to be more social media campaigns on it to, get people educated. That's my opinion on it, really. And I think people need to be educated more. And the game is for everyone. Simply enough.
Absolutely, and I think that's the nail on the coffin there. Like, that's the fundamental point. The game is for everyone. And as you said there, like, I don't want to go too much into the whole conversation, but I think there's just a lot of people that are very annoyed, very angry, and they're picking out their frustrations in the wrong ways, and they're not understanding. They're not having a full concept of the the words and I suppose things they're coming out with, to be fair. But as you said there, like, you hit the full nail on the coffin. The game is for everyone, and I think it has been great to see the likes of Bodou Saya and some other footballers obviously making that sort of step up in the last couple of years. I suppose before we finish up, then, who would you say has been your player of the week, and I suppose moment of the week from the All Ireland Hurling Championship?
Player of the week is obvious because of how he got to the game and how he performed, putting his body on. Player of the week, probably John Conlon is my player of the week because of the way he had the wedding with his brother, and
I think we may have slightly lost you there, but I think I heard player of the week was John Conlon, who obviously, as you said there, like, had a bit of a crazy weekend, obviously playing his brother's wedding and everything else, and then going out and beating Limerick, and very much sort of epitomizes everything about the GAA. We've seen some crazy stories in the club championships and everything else that obviously happened last year. Just a few comments here maybe to go through. Denise says shouldn't be able to put on a jersey until you are respective of people's race, beliefs, and religion. And Padge says thoughts on Dublin's future in hurling. Yeah, no, I think it's a very, very interesting point. In fairness, I think Dublin hurling is in a weird sort of space at the moment. Like, we're sort of moving out from younger players, or from sort of the older guard around 2013. And obviously some of the younger players that have come into the side as well. But look, with the resources and everything else that we have, you'd expect Dublin hurling to hopefully kick on over the next couple of years. And obviously that game versus Wexford next week is absolutely crucial. You were obviously saying there about player of the week and moment of the week before you got cut off. I think we heard John Conlon was your player of the week. I probably would agree with that, to be fair.
Yeah, I was saying John Conlon, you heard me right there. And the moment of the week, I'd probably have to go for Clare beating Limerick. That moment when the Clare players knew they had it at the end before even the free out was taken. I think that was a moment of the week for me. So yeah, both awards go to Clare.
Yeah, and I think I agree as well. Like, I'd probably also go for David Fitzgerald as well in round midfield. You know, I thought a very, very good game for Clare as well. In fairness, Brian Concannon for Galway was equally impressive. But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here anyway. Make sure to check out Matthew's show when you get a chance, the GAA Statsman podcast, and obviously check him out on Instagram, Twitter, and all social media channels as well. And for those who did tune into this show, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, be very much appreciated. And if you could share this out to your friends and family, that'd be absolutely fantastic as well. So yeah, Matthew, cheers very much for coming on. And I suppose for anyone who tuned in, thanks very much.
Thanks, Aaron.